Today, we're going to be discussing the future of Zbec Network. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, how are my snipers doing today? I hope you guys are doing fantastic. Listen, today we're talking about the one, the only Zbec Network. Now, we are going to discuss the short term price action, but mainly we're going to be looking at the bigger picture, right? What we should be expecting over the next few weeks, and overall, what the final destination for something like Zbec is going to be over, let's just say, maximum the next year, right? Because I do believe we will obviously have a top, and then, of course, there's going to be the bear season. Remember, despite how great a project is, once the market makers decide, okay, it's time to start selling off, then the cycle just resets. Okay, it's very, very simple. You won't usually ever see, I mean, it's very, very rare, something where it just kind of goes continuously up and up and up and up, right? The only kind of exception is the S&P 500. But you got to remember, ZBEC and a lot of other cryptos, respectively, aren't the S&P 500. So, you know, do not expect continuous pumps. And even with the S&P 500, there's been times where, it pumps and pumps and pumps, and it just has a big dump, big manipulation correction. And then, of course, it continues, right? So everything does get corrected eventually. Everything does get corrected eventually. Now, we will discuss the short term price action. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, we will discuss the more longer price action, right? The longer term price action. So we can see in terms of the short term, ladies and gentlemen, we do have a nice support over here, right? Boom, over here. But we also do have a nice resistance over here, which we can see, ladies and gentlemen, right at 0.0043. We kind of just started to sell off. When we look at the 4 hour, it's a pretty nice sell. On the 4 hour, obviously the daily is kind of just whatever. We can see we're kind of being choppy again. We're kind of being choppy. As of right now, right? It seems like we're going to be going sideways. And for me, this just screams the same thing that I saw over here, right? Every time there's some type of choppiness movement, even if there's short term manipulation, we get a bounce upside. We see some type of choppy movement over here. And then guess what? We continue to go up, right? Every time ZBEC Networks has some type of choppiness, right? Even boom, here we have this choppy movement for roughly 2 to 3 weeks. And then we just had a huge expansion, right? Every time there is choppiness for me, ladies and gentlemen, that just screams that ZBEC is going to go to the upside. Even if we did see some short term manipulation, let's say we went into this institutional candle at roughly 0.004, I ultimately do see Zbec Network going up higher, right? It's very, very simple. Right? Every time Zbec has been just going sideways and it starts to just be weird, it usually pumps. Now, we kind of have similar price action to what we had over here back in April, where for 3 weeks, we didn't really have the best structure. Okay. For 3 weeks, we didn't really have the best structure. It looked kind of weak. And then the next week, we kind of just exploded. And we are on the third week currently, right? We are on the third week currently. And we can see even if we do something like this, boom, boom, we are kind of just in this zone right over here. So ladies and gentlemen, the time to get serious is now. The next few months are going to be the most crucial time of your lives. Okay. We're going to have crypto exploding. And this is the time to get a portfolio review, right? You got to make sure you have the right cryptos. You don't want any old or dead coins, or you don't want anything that can give you little profits, right? So we provide a portfolio review. We've also been smashing it with the high probability meme coins. We hit an 11x, an 8x, and 5.5x in recent times. We also provide a weekly report on the crypto data, on the crypto analysis, and of course, ladies and gentlemen, on other altcoins as well. You get all this and a bunch more other benefits. Highly recommend joining the private community. Ladies and gentlemen, let's make some money. We are in the zone and we do need to make a choice. We really, really need to make a choice. I know if we go on a daily, it doesn't look like it, but I mean, guys, we really need to decide. And for me, this is one of those things where, Friday, Saturday, Sunday might be slower, and then we will see upside on Monday. Okay. Now, like I said, there is a possibility of manipulation to the downside, but everything will be super short term and short lived. Why? Well, ladies and gentlemen, the overall structure is bearish. We are also coming up to, another quarter. I know this or this 3 month candle doesn't look anything special, but we are coming up to another quarter, and I do expect the Zbec network to do well. Okay, I really genuinely do. And of course, Bitcoin is looking to be continuously pumping up. I expect quarter four to also do well. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, when we look at something like altcoins, where's right over here, altcoins I overall expect to be going up continuously. Okay, so all the data suggests that we are going to be going up, especially with the rate cuts, especially that we're expecting more rate cuts, 1 to 2 more rate cuts by the end of the year. It just screams bullishness, right? Everything screams bullishness. Now, I haven't pulled out this indicator in some time, but I know the liquidity overall, right? The liquidity overall in terms of other nations have been skyrocketing, right? They have been skyrocketing. And, even despite this liquidity kind of just being sideways, um, that doesn't really mean too much necessarily, because we have seen something like gold really just go up over the last little while, right? If we actually just remove this indicator, we can see gold has just been shooting up further and further. So, it doesn't necessarily match the liquidity 100%, which is why I stopped kind of using it. Until things start lining up again, I will not be using that indicator with those settings. But we can see, ladies and gentlemen, gold went up, right? And according to liquidity, we should be just going sideways or just not doing anything special. So yeah, do not just get discouraged, because like I said, I have seen other liquidity charts for other countries and they've looked very, very, very nice. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, overall, when it comes to Zbec, I expect fantastic things. If we take it from the top to, let's just say, this bottom down here before the huge momentum, or you know what, since this is actually more of a relevant bottom, I will take it over here and we will reverse this like so. Boom, there we go. And we can see, ladies and gentlemen, right, we have our zones marked up. So 1.68, or sorry, 1.618, it's usually an underwhelming target. So although I do expect it to get hit, I expect it to go further, right? I expect the expansion to probably at least be to 2.2 to 3.2. I mean, I know that sounds kind of crazy, but I genuinely do believe so, because we have been consolidating for some time. And of course, if we go and line up this trend line over here, which pretty much takes a bunch of the highs, the 2.2 looks very, very nice. Even we go upwards of 1.5 cents, right? 1.5 cents is calling Zbec's name, which would be a little bit more than a 3x from this position, right? I could definitely see, us having a nice big expansion, boom, going to the upside, probably having then some type of correction manipulation, but then continuing to go further and further up. Going up roughly, what is this amount? Something like this. Going up roughly 3.6 times is nothing crazy in terms of market cap, right? It's nothing too crazy. Even if we were being generous and we rounded this up to 400 million market cap and we did times four, that would still be 1.6 billion. And of course, I rounded it up and I made it worse for ourselves. So it's going to be around 1.3 billion or so. So that's not that that's nothing. That's nothing. Let's be honest. That is nothing in terms of market cap, especially for a titan like Zbec. So I really do think, you know, once we start getting expansions, we will just be resting a little bit and we will really start to explode. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, that every chart, all this seems very impossible, right? Just on the chart, it looks, oh, this is so high. You got to remember, every chart started somewhere. You know, just because some of you guys also do watch the Turbo videos, I'm going to use Turbo as an example. You got to remember that at one point, something like Turbo, people were in it when it was down here. And, people believe it was going to come all the way up here. And now this looks crazy, right? If I take it, this looks kind of crazy, especially if I did it off the Fibonacci tool. Let's say something like this, right? The 1.6, the 1.2. And I mean, yeah, look where we hit. We hit all the way up here and eventually, of course, higher areas. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, do not get discouraged. I believe Zbec is going to do absolutely wonders this cycle. I believe, right now is a very, very solid time to be buying. If we look and go and do something like this, take it from the top to take it to the bottom, we can see if we do flip it, ladies and gentlemen, reverse, we're roughly at a 61% discount from the highs. So it is a very solid price to be dollar cost averaging. I don't really think, like I said, we're going to be going back to the 0.78 or the 0.88. So, for me, these are great times to be buying, in my personal opinion, but of course, not a financial advisor. That is it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys did enjoy, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Goodbye.